Sup peeps, my name's Ian. I sell books on eBay. Welcome to the channel. Welcome to this episode of selling books on eBay. I've got 15 or so orders to get packed up today, so I'll show you what's sold. But also something I just wanted to talk about, which I've talked about previously and we'll talk about again in the future, but it's something which I think is key to being a success in any business, anything you do. Right, what is that thing? It's continuous improvement. I'm going to come back to that in a moment or two, but first let's have a look at some orders. As I said, we've got quite a few and I've not got a lot of time to get them all packed up and off to the post office. But first up, we've got 3 Colleen Hoover paperbacks. They just keep selling, $9.99 for the 3 of those. Followed by, oh, we've got some MC Beaton. Right, I've got a couple of lots of MC Beaton going out today, and this is the first, a little bundle of 3. So this is the Agatha Raisin books, 3 of them anyway. Deadly Dance, Pushing Up Daisies, Witch's Tree, and the 3 of those went for £9.69. So 3 books for a tenner. Nice. Even when they sell promoted listings. Right, the next is a pre-made bundle. I stopped putting these bundles together a wee while ago because they just weren't selling, but they are slowly trickling out the door, so I'll need to have a wee look at what I've still got waiting to list, you know, like individual titles, and see if it's worth making up any more. But we've got a bundle of 6 romantic fiction books, $14.99, so again that's quite nice for what they are. Peter James. Right, I've got a Peter James bundle here somewhere. Let's get to them down here. Here we go. 5 Peter James paperbacks. What more can you really say about that? And I'm pretty sure they went for, yep, $12.99. One of those authors that always is on the edge of the 2 kilo mark, so I'll be weighing them. Right, a pre-made bundle again, a series. Let's pick these up. So it's 6 books in a series. I don't know if there are only 6 or if it goes higher than that, but I had books 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I went back into the same shop and book 2 had appeared, so I'd already listed these 5, so I changed the listing, added a couple of quid onto it, added that book into it, and it sold almost straight away for $13.99. So yeah, that was good. It always makes a difference when you've got a complete set. That was Maria Schneider, The Chronicles of Ixia, books 1 to 6. Right, a nice wee individual sale. Halloween, acceptable condition. It's pretty banged up, but all of that shown very clearly in the pictures. Took an offer on this, 40 quid. So off it goes. Right, the second MC Beaton bundle, which are here, and it's 5 of them this time, including a wee hardcover there. So the 5 of those, £13.69. Because hardcovers, I'll stick £1 on them. If people want to buy them, they can. If they don't have to. That's the thing. Alex Gray, another Scottish author. 3 Alex Gray paperbacks. Another author that sells pretty well. Doesn't sell every day, but goes out with reasonable regularity. And $9.99 for the 3 of those. Obviously all of these prices include postage. And then we've got Marion Keyes, which will be an over 2 kilo bundle because our paperbacks ain't small, and there's a couple of hardcovers in there as well. But £14.84 for 5 Marion Key books. Marion Keyes, not key, Keyes. And another bit of a kind of romantic-y fiction. We've got some Danielle Steele, so 5 Danielle Steele paperbacks. I sell these a lot cheaper because I pick up so many of them. And you know, might as well just keep them moving. So £9.99 for 5 Daniel Steele paperbacks. And an author that I don't sell often at all, but it's still nice to see them go. Alexander McCall Smith. So the #1 ladies detective agency was the one that was in the telly and probably his most famous book, but that ain't included in this lot. £14.99 for 5 of those, because there's a couple of hardcovers. Right. We must be getting near the end. I showed you this one the other day when I picked it up. Murdle, £7.99. So murder, mystery, logic puzzles. So that's sold in about a week. That's it for £7.99. Right, a wee bundle somebody's made up themselves. We've got The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt, Please Kill Me, it's a history of punk. Don DeLillo, Underworld, Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, and 1984 by George Orwell. So 5 works of literature, apart perhaps from the uncensored oral history of punk. Maybe wouldn't class it as literature, but still a really nice bundle, and it sold for £15.58. So there we go. I think that's a first edition of The Goldfinch, which always pushes the price up ever so slightly. Then we've got 3 Harry Harrison books, 2 different copies of The Stainless Steel Rat and The Stainless Steel Rat's Revenge. So 3 of those, and what have we got there? 17 quid or 16.98, something along those lines. So a wee bit of vintage sci-fi. And that's the orders I've got to get sorted out. I've got one more that I haven't picked yet because it just came in as I was going to get started up here, so I need to go and find it afterwards. I'll maybe tell you about it later on, or tomorrow, or sometime, who knows. Anyway, continuous improvement. Got a comment from, let's have a quick look and find this on here. Right, so Siltron, hope I'm saying that right. Saying, basically, when doing anything, I try to find a way to make it work, then try to do it that way until it becomes easier natural, like a flow state or path of least resistance type of thing. Then from there I experiment until I find a better path, reiterate or improve the process. Eventually, I feel like I've not only mastered this thing, but I've improved the process so much that I make it look easy. There's always a better way. Don't settle or be content with merely repeating the processes you already do. And the wee saying that they have mantra that they use for that, everything has a way of working and everything has a way of working better. So Siltron, thank you very much for that. A really good, succinct way of describing continuous improvement. This is off the back video from yesterday or the day before, I can't remember which. I was talking about processes, and you know, I've been doing the same thing repeatedly for the last few months. Well, there's always wee tweaks that are being made, but very much, I spent a decade working in continuous improvement, for millions of pounds budgets, and trying to find all the wee tweaks and things that would save there, that it adds up. It's pennies here, it's pounds there, but suddenly over a relatively short period of time you're saving the business millions. And it's quite significant what you can do with all of these wee improvements. But before you can improve something, you need to understand how it works right now, which is really what Siltron's talking about there. You have a process and you make sure that you understand exactly what that process is. So if packing, let's just talk about packing books, because that's a fairly straightforward way to put it into context. So my process for packing books is, first up, have an appropriate workstation. That could be a very small space, it could be a very large space, but the key thing there is that it's set up so that it takes you the minimal amount of time to go through each step in the process to pack your books. So I've just showed you the books that I've picked there. They're all sat in order, still, beside me. I've got bags and tape just there. I've got the scales in front of me. I've got the bubble wrap just below me, so it comes up and runs. Scissors, Sharpies, everything is in reaching distance from where I'm standing doing this. So that means that simple process is lift the bubble wrap, place the books, wrap, cut, tape, bag, weigh, write, stack to the side. And I do all of them in order, and then bring up the postage app and input all the weights again, because they're already in order, so I can just go through them. And then they are still in order, print the labels, and the labels go onto them, and they're all in order, so I'm not having to dig about for things. And even simple things there that as I put the label on it, it goes straight into a bag. So I'm not creating a pile and then having to go and take them out and put them in a bag. All of these things save moments and time, but it means that I can very, very efficiently and effectively get all of these things done very quickly. So to get to that point, it took a period of time. It wasn't a long time, but it took a period of time. You know, you'd have your bubble wrap here, you'd have your bags over there, your labels are here, the stuff's there. You've got books stacked everywhere that are getting packed up. So everything takes an extra few seconds to do until you get into that point where, you know, I pick my books and I sit them typically on the left of me. I show them to you guys and I put them on the right of me. I pack them and they go back to the left of me. I get the labels go on and they go into the bag on the right of me. So it really makes it a very, very quick and easy process. Now, that saves time. Time is money, so you could class that as being able to increase your profitability. If it takes you an hour to pack 20 orders, then that's an hour of your time. If you can get that down to half an hour, which is probably what it takes me to do around about 20 orders, then that means that in theory, if you were working an 8-hour day doing that, you could do twice as much, which means when you take that back through your process, you can afford to generate twice as many sales because you will be able to process them. You can afford, that's maybe the wrong word there, you can then increase your sourcing by double because you're able to sell and process twice as many items. But this is where it gets tricky. The Toyota Way, I replied to Sildren's comment and mentioned the book The Toyota Way is probably the best continuous improvement book I have read in many, many titles over many, many years. And one of the things that it always comes back to, as do many of the other, you know, descriptions of this process, what's the example I like to use? A bakery. So you own a bakery and you've got a guy making the dough, making up the loaves, and then you've got a guy or a gal, whatever you want to say, running the ovens to get it all baked and out, and then you've got somebody else who's doing the packing and preparing them for sale. Now the guy making the dough can make up 100 loaves in an hour. The guy doing the packing can pack 200 loaves an hour, but the oven can only do 50. So no matter what you do in that process, you're going to be limited to 50 an hour. So you've got waste at one end because the guy who could be packing 200 an hour has only got 50 to pack, and you've got waste at the front end because the guy who could prepare 100 can only prepare 50 because that's all that's available to go in the oven at any given time. So that's really the first step in continuous improvement in what you're doing. So, you know, me saying, right, you could double how many books, how many items you sell because you can, you know, half the time it takes you to pack and process. But if you don't have time to list all of those items, if you don't have time to go and source all of those items, if you don't have the budget to source all of those items, then that kind of becomes irrelevant at that end. If you can go out and source 100 items a day, brilliant. But if you've only got time to list 20 of them, you're going to end up with a death pile like that. That's not efficient and effective. If you can list 20 items a day, then you only need to source 20 items a day. If you can source 100, then only source the top 20 or 30. There's nothing wrong with having a backlog in case you have a day where you can't do things. But make sure that you understand what you can do in each step of your entire business, every process that you've got, and that you have a flow going through that you're not going to come up with any bottlenecks. So you don't have, if you're outsourcing 100 items a day and you can list 20, and you do that for 5 days, you're going to have 500 items that you've picked up, and you only have listed 100 of them. So you've got a backlog of 400, which is a big pile of stuff, let's be honest. If you can list 20 a day, but you only need to sell and process 10 a day, then the bottleneck becomes in your actual store. So every day you're selling half of what you list, which means that your store's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, which is good up to a point, because the more you have, inevitably, the more you will sell. But you have to consider what the cost is of having that stock in your store. So if you have I can't even remember what the eBay different shop scales are, but the one I'm on, which is kind of in the middle, I get 1,500 free listings a month. The one below that is hundreds, I don't know, somewhere in the hundreds. So if you were able to sell 500 items a month, but you were listing 2,000, you're going to be paying extra to have all of that on the eBay site ad infinitum. That's not going to change. So again, you need to consider how much you're able to sell and scale that part appropriately to match what you're able to source and the time you have to actually pack and post it out. Say you can list 100 items a day and pick up 100 items a day. If you've got 100 listed, you pick them up, you get them all listed, and then you sell 100 a day, but you've only got time to pick and pack 20, then you have an issue at that end. So before you try and improve any process, understand what the full process is. Get your post-it notes, do it on your screen, you can do it on your phone, but map out that process, all the different steps, all the different potential directions that those steps can go in. And only once you have that map can you actually start to improve what your processes are. Now, whenever anybody's talked about these things, they always use really quite simple examples. And that's at a fairly kind of high level, everything that I'm describing there. But your processes can come down to, absolute micros, such as creating a listing. So how do you create a listing? With books, take the book, scan the barcode, see what details are there, complete any that are missing, any that need to be changed relevant to the particular item that you've got, put in your price, make sure your description's there, postage, etc., and list it. Right, so that's going to take a certain amount of time, and it will also have a certain amount of efficacy. So if you mapped out exactly what that process was, then it's scan, title, description, price, postage, list. So that's perhaps your top level. But within that, you have, how do you come up with your title? How do you come up with your description? How do you come up with your price, etc.? And within each of those, there's a process. It's possibly just a thought process, and one you don't even really give much thought to. But if you capture what that process is, then you'll be able to identify what within that is waste, what within that works, what you can get rid of, what you can change, what you can tweak to make the process more efficient and more effective. Now, processes don't always get quicker. Sometimes they'll get a wee bit longer. But if it takes you an extra few seconds to change up the title or add something to the description, which is going to make it more likely to get a sale, then that's an improvement in the process and something that you should do. So titles and descriptions are very important with that. Other simple things like you have, so I'm listing 3 books, and I know I'm going to be listing them all for the same price, same postage. There's going to be a chunk of the description which is generic, so on, so forth. So when I'm going through scanning and listing those, I don't list them all there and then. I prepare them, because when you're preparing a listing, I use my phone for most of these, to be honest, a lot of the time is waiting for pages to update, save, change, and move on. So you can capture your timings on that. So it takes you 10 seconds to write a title, 20 seconds to do a description, 20 seconds to go in and change the price, make sure it's relevant, and set your VAT and offers and all of these bits and pieces. But if you go through it and look at it, then it might be that, and the payment details, the postage details, the extra description is where I save time on these. You go through, and these parts you don't complete at that point, because you can complete them en masse on your computer. It makes it much easier. So you put in the basics that you have to do for these individual listings, and then once you've got 3 of them, 20 of them, 100 of them, 200 of them, whatever it is you're doing in a sitting, then you can go in on eBay and update them all at the same time, which, if you're listing 3 books, it's going to save you a minute, maybe 2, depending on how slow your phone is. Mine's incredibly slow because it's old. But if you're doing 100, then that could save you half an hour, because it's all the time waited for. You know, I go into price on my phone and it comes up with a recommended, and then it processes for a few seconds before you're able to go in and change a detail there. And once you've changed the price, say, it goes in and it spins for another few seconds before you can change the quantity, and it spins for another few seconds before you can put in your VAT, whatever it is. So all of that adds up, but if you do that all in once, it's considerably quicker. So there's lots of little steps in the processes there where that would allow you to list more items in less time. Again, simple, but in doing that, you need to be set up to do it. If you get somewhere where you can do all your phone work, and then very quickly and easily move over to your PC, your laptop, whatever it is you've got, and do the extra bit on there. So there's so many different ways that you can just keep tweaking and changing all the processes that you do. Sourcing is a process. You wander down to town, you wander around the shops, you look at everything that's there, you think about what to pick up, what not to pick up, you look it up on your phone, etc, etc. I mean, that's kind of how you source, isn't it? Especially if you're, you know, an everything seller, an everything reseller, I should say. But the process there is knowledge. That's a big part of it. So if you know the kind of things that you want to pick up, that you like to pick up, then you educate yourself and you learn about them, so that when you go into the shops, that part of the process becomes a lot quicker, because you're not having to stop and think at every shirt you look at every knick-knack you look at every teacup, whatever it could be. You know what you're looking for, and you can much more quickly pick up what you need to pick up. And then if you've got spare time, that's where you can have that learning experience in the shops, looking up the different bits and pieces. One of the reasons I moved to a niche with the books was that, although being an everything reseller is more profitable, I'm not going to deny that, you can make more money doing that, it takes an awful lot more time. So for me to go out and pick up, you know, a few £100 worth of stock, it could take me all day, because having to look at things, everything I look at I have to think about. Whereas with the books, I know what I'm looking for. I know what condition is acceptable, so if it's not in the right condition, I'm not even going to look at it. I know which authors I'm looking for. I couldn't tell you them all off the top of my head. I could probably run through a good few hundred if I thought about it, but when I see them on the shelves, I know which authors I want to pick up. So condition and the author, and that's all I need to think about when I'm going through everything. I'll have that one, I'll have that one, I'll have that one, I'll have that one. I don't want that one, I don't want that one, I'll have that one. I'm also kind of wired in about the books that I think might be interesting beyond that. So certain genres like your fantasy and your sci-fi books with impressive covers, classics, folio books, there's a whole batch within that as well, but they're the extra books that if I see them, and I very rarely go and pick up books where they're expensive, it's always cheap books, then I know that I can take the gamble and the risk, so I don't need to think about it, I don't need to stop and scan them, I just pick them up, and if they're a bomb, they're a bomb, but the losses on that are going to be minimal compared to the amount of time it would take to go and look through and look up all of these books. So I can be in and out of somewhere in half an hour with 100, 200 books. That's an improvement on that part of the process. So that takes less time. I keep my listings as quick as I can, and then I've got my packaging and my postal drop off down as tight as I can get it at the moment. There are always ways to improve these things, but that's where I've got it at the moment. Doing the same thing that I have been doing is I've been sticking to pretty much the same breadth of authors and book types. I've not really gone beyond that at the moment, and there's various reasons why. Space, limited in space. There's only so much that I can work in and do. The biggest space limit I've got is a death pile. I don't have space to have thousands of books waiting to get processed and listed, and to find new authors that might sell, that's where I want to pick them up, get them turned into a bundle of some sort so that I can put up that type of listing. So I've been quite cautious about doing that, but now I'm in a position where I've managed to create a wee bit more space, so I am looking at some different authors, and as I've been seeing them over the months more and more often, that means that I know they're out there. So I might only see a couple of books by an author, but I'm familiar enough to know that in the next few weeks I'll see a few more, and within a month I'll maybe have enough of a stack to start up a listing on it. So that's the part of the process that I need to change, and that's part of the scaling process. So you've got your kind of physical processes, you've got your mental processes, and then you've got your scaling processes. So it's how do you increase your business? If you're only using 2 hours a day and you've got 8 to spare, then you can do 4 times as much work in that period. You can make 4 times the effort to potentially increase your sales 4-fold, which would be very nice. Very rarely actually works quite as directly as that. But within that, there will be limitations, and you need to understand what those limitations are and decide what you're going to do about them. If you can't find enough stock to increase it 4-fold, then what do you do about that? Are there areas that you could go to where you might find more stock? And those are risks initially, so you've got to decide on what your risk appetite is there. There's a town 20 miles away. If you drive to it, there's 5 or 6 places where you could potentially source stock, but you don't know if they're going to be any good, if they're going to be too expensive, if they're going to have the right kind of stuff. But you need to make that effort to find out. So if you want to increase what you've got, those 5 or 6 stores could double what it is you're able to do in a week. And then there's another town that's 20 miles in another direction, and so on and so forth. And that's all about the risk appetite and the risk and reward part of it as well. To drive 20 miles somewhere and 20 miles back, 40 quid, that could be £8-10 in fuel. Never mind any of the other expenses. So there's potential risk there that you could lose it, but is it worth making that effort because you've got the spare time to do the other bits and pieces? You could go the first time and pick up a cracking haul, you go back the next week and there's nothing there. So again, that's where you need to work out what your process is for that sourcing. What is your route? Where do you want to go on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis, a fortnightly basis, once a year? Never. And you can work all of these bits and pieces out as well to keep improving your process. Anyway, I feel like I'm not really describing all of this particularly well, but the point of this is really to make it clear that continuous improvement is how you will continuously improve your business. If you improve things by 1% at a time, lots of little things that give you a 1% improvement, once you've changed 100 things, you've increased it by 100%. And 100 little things don't necessarily take that long to pick up and do, but it's key that you don't change them all at once. You've got to make a change and understand what impact that change has made. Has it made things better? Has it made things worse? Has it changed any other part of the process along the line? So it's always good to have a good process map of everything that you do, so that when you do want to change something, you can see how that will impact everything else, and then be able to measure it, so has it saved you time? Has it saved you money? Has it made you more money? Has it improved quality? Whatever those different aspects might be, make sure that you can understand and record them, and then you're in a position to go on and change the next thing. Anyway, this was going to be a wee 5-minute ramble. It's ended up being a heck of a lot more, so I'm going to stop there for now. But thank you so much for joining me today, as ever, and hopefully I'll see you tomorrow.